So, sweet. So today, let me get myself up here. Boom. So today's class is going to be on how to simplify an ad account. And this is one of the big things that I get it from a lot of people. And it's not just when you take on an ad account. It's also what happens sometimes when you're down the line and you've made all the right decisions, and you suddenly look back and you're like, wow, I am way, like I would, if I took this over from somebody, I know that immediately I would do 5 things and get rid of all these choices. So when we're looking at an ad account, just start off with, when we adopt somebody's ad account, for instance, that's where we go in and we do the Scrum doc, we try to analyze, we do this audit, we understand what are our liabilities and our assets. But some of the things that we also want to get done is understanding when you're taking somebody over, when you're taking over an account, we need to be doing the creative testing. We need to be able to implement our strategies as we're talking about. But one of the worst things that people do is they just turn off everything and rebuild from scratch. So first off, we'll address with that, and then we'll get into like for your own ad account when all of a sudden, well, this is way too complicated. So the first thing, taking somebody else's account over. When we're doing that, part of the issue when we're taking an account over is that somebody else, the reason we got brought onto that account is because very directly things weren't working. But the reason that they got there is because for one reason or another, something is going well. And so we want to make sure that we don't just set fire to everything that's happening. And with that in mind, what we need to do is ultimately understand what is working, what isn't. And this is where we really can go down to how many moving parts are there. We take inventory of our stock, right? Or stock of our inventory, like a restaurant or a store. How many do we have? How many places are we investing? Now, the 3 biggest pieces that I'll look for to hear, and a lot of these are similar on my own accounts when I end up making 20 bright ideas and then I look back 3 months later, I'm like, holy shit, I got way too many things going on, is what is the percentage of my spend that is in the learning phase? Now, that is when you have Facebook audit your account, the Facebook reps, the measurement team, that is line item number 1. So basically what we're going over is if when you have Facebook audit your account, what does that report look like? That's within the action item from that, because I've been ripped to shreds by them a few times. The first thing they do is percentage of spend in the learning phase. And the point that's really valuable here is, remember, the learning phase is Facebook telling you they're not confident in a consistent result. So how much of your investment is going to something that you are not, that Facebook themselves, the machine is not confident in delivering a consistent result. And if they're not confident in delivering a consistent result, that means you're getting an unstable result. Now, not only is that bad for your consistency on a day-to-day basis, but in looking at the estimated action rate and your page score and all these other factors in the algorithm, how much spend are you, what is your percentage of spend that is likely coming in at a liability to your efficiency across your entire account? Because it's not just, oh, these 3 ad sets, are in learning and when they get out will be good. Those 3 ad sets, maybe they're 20% of your spend, 35% of your spend. Maybe you're taking over somebody that's just, I did this, D2C coffee shop yesterday. My buddy Dylan in Austin, fun new video on YouTube if you want to check it out. He was like, man, I'm an ABO guy, I'm an interest guy, all this stuff. He might have 20 things. That might be 80% of his spend. Well, that is 80% of the spend where Facebook is not confident on being able to deliver good user experiences to the customer, to their end user, which means you might be investing 80 cents on every dollar to make Facebook more expensive, even where you are out of learning, because you're being seen more and more by the platform as a low integrity business partner. And that's a really, really big thing. It's not just spend money where you're going to win. It's also don't spend money where you are a liability to your success as a partner to the platform. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm hearing and that I'm seeing and that we're getting, especially after the iOS 14 stuff, is Facebook is 100% prioritizing your relationship with the platform as an advertiser as something to keep in mind. And you can see this even, anecdotally, when you look on the internet of the people complaining about CPMs of $30, $50, $100. They're also the people that say, yeah, we're using interest groups, we're doing targeting, our ads only work for 3 to 5 days. They're the people that don't have stuff out of learning. They're the folks that are constantly taking a new effort, constantly going in different directions. And what happens there, that means that they're not able to deliver the system a consistent high quality signal of what you want. and they can't deliver a consistent high quality experience to the end user. So out of the four of us, if you say Eric's got an account with 1 campaign, Kelvin's got one with 3, Daniel's got one with 5, and I've got one with 20. If we're all doing the exact same thing, I'm going to pay easily 2 to 3 times as much as Eric will, because I have way more spend that is still in learning. So because of that, Facebook is seeing an inconsistent result of the end user experience, which means my page score, my advertiser score, what they now call the new term, and I saw it for the first time yesterday, your gamma score, which I guess is because of Meta, like they're rebranding the page score, advertiser score, and user score into some new thing. The gamma score is being depreciated because of all of this investment you're making that isn't consistently delivering a positive user experience. So just like everything else we talked about, if you want to be successful in a partnership and a relationship, you have to listen to the needs of your partner. And if you tell them to fuck off, don't be surprised when they don't want to work with you. And Facebook's way of not wanting to work with you is just charging you more and more money to play. And so this is one of the things that we've known, but have now had confirmed a lot more. But when I'm looking at stuff, the first thing that Facebook looks at when they audit your account, and this goes back years, is what is your percentage of spend in the learning phase? So that is fundamental to understanding how to do better with your ad account. The second thing that we're looking at here is we want to make sure, when we're like, how do we simplify, is where do we have objectives that are competing or that are duplicitous efforts? Maybe it's not necessarily the same advertising campaign. Maybe it's not necessarily the same audience. Maybe it's not necessarily just duplicating ad sets. But how many places are you trying to acquire? Are you trying to target the same inventory with a similar offer? Let me put it to you this way. One of the things, maybe you are, you've got a couple, you've got broad, you've got a lookalike going in there, you got some broad retargeting, something like that. And then, well, okay, this makes sense. And then we're going to do some other offer over here, and we're trying to make stuff work. We got a few moving parts. All of those things make sense because you're doing them all well in isolation. But in aggregate, how many of those efforts are all trying to target the same type of user with the same conversion event, with the same user experience? And what I mean by this more than anything is, especially if your brand has 2 products or 3, if they're all purchase, then you are competing against yourself. And this is what I talk about a lot. Like if they're all the same price, put those ads in the same ad account or in the same campaign. But the bitter thing here is you might have made sense. I'm going to sell this product. I'm going to sell this product. I'm going to sell this one. All of that makes sense. But when we're trying to simplify, one of the things we want to look to is, does this bring me incremental value when I'm competing with myself? Basically, this makes sense for me to promote 3 things because I like the 3 products. But am I struggling to get past 2,000 a day because I'm supporting 3 efforts where one of them could get me to 2,000 just by itself and I can spend 500 someplace else? The point is, as you begin to chase down different disciplines, we're getting places that are dumber because they're not seeing as much spend. And I mean, Daniel can back me up on this if you want to, but the more spend you give, the more data it gets. And sometimes the way to get out of a problem is to actually throw more data at the system so it solves it. Now you can do this by ramping up your budget, but you can also do this by reducing the amount of places you're spending money. So instead of spending money in 10 places that all make sense because it was the next logical step when you were doing it, one of the ways of making things work is find out, well, which one of these has the highest confidence of success? Which one is most stable with the best back end? And if I can figure out what that is, removing the other options is going to make that thing stronger and better for me. And this is, when we talked about the Slack chat we had last time about the efforts of retargeting and how retargeting can absolutely be a liability to your experience. We talked about the science of the algorithm and how the bidding model works, which fun chat. You should check it out if you didn't see it. Just like how retargeting can have that effect. In this case, we can have the same issue by multiple products, multiple ad sets, multiple campaigns. So how do we actually simplify? And we'll get to that in 1 second. I just want to cover the third part here. The third thing that we're looking at for simplification, because it's not just like narrow. We have to identify what is bad before we just start hacking things off, right? We have to do discovery and evaluation. So the third thing that we need to look at here is understanding not only where we're getting the best front-end metrics, and I kind of sneak peeked into this in the last point, but where do we get the highest volume of quality customer into the rest of our experience? And what I mean by this is, you might have a $20 product, a $50 and $100. Well, that $20 product might lead to a subscription model where somebody sticks around for 5 months. And you get a 20% of those people stick around, in which case that user is actually worth, there's a 3 or 4x lift on that customer. So maybe it costs you $15 or $25 to get that $20 customer, but they're actually worth 80 to 100. And so you're actually 4xing your revenue. Maybe the $100 customer, you can get them for $30, but they never buy again. Which one of these is actually better for you? I would argue that $20 product that works on subscription is better for you, because all you need to do is drive more volume to that. And because now you've centralized your marketing efforts, you're going to get better and better at that back end. And maybe you get them 25% stick around, or you get them to stick around for 9 months. How do you scale that customer journey afterwards so that you can afford a higher and higher customer acquisition cost? If you can afford, instead of $25, maybe you can afford 30. 35, and that allows you to double your spend, double the volume of people that are coming in that you're 4xing, 3.5xing your money on, instead of the folks that you're getting 3x up front, but they never buy from you ever again. And the other part that this is really strong is you're getting more reoccurring revenue that's coming in that's less reliant on paid media going out. And when you're talking about buying attention and buying money in an exchange rate, the most important thing is to get all the free money you possibly can, and monthly reoccurring revenue that doesn't require email or paid media is money you wake up to in the morning. And when you wake up to that money in the morning that you didn't have to pay to acquire, it means that when your marketing efforts are more difficult, you're good. When things are more expensive, you don't have to play. When Black Friday is happening and everybody's knifing each other in the street, you just stop spending money. And what ends up happening is your profit margin goes way the fuck up, because every day you made 10 grand, 20, 30, whatever it is. I mean, I used to do this where we would wake up to $60,000 in the Shopify. So like I have different experience than some people do, but like if you wake up to $1,000 a day in the Shopify and you're like, great, I can spend $1,000 a day in ads and I'm going to 3x it. And now, oh my God, Black Friday is happening. Everybody's knifing each other in the street. I'm struggling making money. What if you just don't advertise for a week? You just made $7,000, $8,000 in profit because you reduced your cost. And so what I'm getting at is here, understanding what those backends are going to allow you to take a look at an ad account that's got a lot of moving parts and understand which parts to remove or which parts are liabilities. So when we're trying to simplify an ad account, especially when we're taking one over from somebody else that's got a lot of moving parts, these are the things we look at, but it's also really important for us. So I said those are the 3 things you're taking over somebody else. And the action items there, generally speaking, are simple. When somebody's got a really complex ad account, what I do is I start to remove budget from the worst available players. Like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So let's make that weakest link take less and less work. And let's give the other links in the chain more work. For instance, very simple hyperbolic situation. Let's say you have 5 campaigns all spending $200 for $1,000 a day. One of those campaigns is absolute dog shit. What happens if we take that $200 out and we make the other 4 $250? Our account immediately looks better. This is the same thing we do about optimizing ads in an ad set. Same thing we can do about ad sets in a campaign. Generally speaking, what I do with my process to start with is I will look to the ad sets. If it's a very complex account, I will look to the ad sets that are still in learning, the ad sets that have been in learning. And can I just deprecate them entirely? And is there another spot where I can reallocate those dollars? I used to have a notebook where I would chart down like, all right, I got 25 moves to do today. Now this comes from back in the day when I started. You couldn't make all the changes and then publish changes. Back in the day that there wasn't a publish and a discard draft function that didn't exist. So we had to do everything in Excel and then upload it at once. And then they introduced Power Editor where you could do that. And now the Power Editor is just what we see all day. But so I'm used to writing down all the moves I'm going to make and then uploading it. And what we really get to do here is I can say, I'm taking $20 from here, $50 from here, $100 in here over the course of the thing. All right, now I've got $300 I need to reallocate. Or what are my highest confidence places where I can reallocate 30 bucks, 40 bucks, 50 bucks, and get rid of that $100 that I saved, reallocating it to places that are out of learning, that are steady, that are constant. And basically what we're doing is we are drying up the investment we have in bad places to invest more heavily in good ones. Now, another thing that we can do here is if you are going into creative testing and you are making a testing campaign and you are getting to your proving ground and trying to make control elements, one of the things you can do, and I literally was on a call with somebody yesterday and we were doing this, is they were spending $2,000 a day in their ad account, about $1,700 to $2,300 a day. And what we were doing is we found about $200 a day that was in learning and consistently in learning. It was like retargeting efforts that they couldn't scale and some other testing and some other stuff. So what we did is we cut that money right out. And what we did instead of reinvesting it in higher confidence places is we started to invest that money into creative testing. We basically said, this is 200 bucks. It's already a liability to your experience with an inconsistent result that we can't project the outcome. It is not money well spent to begin with. So instead of trying to fight this battle that we know we're going to lose, what we're going to do is we're going to take this investment in this battle where we're already losing, and we're going to put this in an opportunity for us to get better. And ultimately what this looks like long-term is that you centralize you start to steal money. I call it stealing money. You see this inside a control campaigns ebook. You steal money from low integrity investments and you invest it in your testing. Eventually your testing outperforms other investments. And like we were talking about before, where's an ad set that's still in learning or that is doing poorly? Well, if my testing is, all I have to do is make sure that my testing campaign is better than the absolute worst ad set or campaign that's in that account. And I can start stealing money from it. I can start siphoning over to more of what I'm doing because I know that me running things with the way that I'm trying to do stuff and my creative testing and dynamic creatives and Golden Bear and all that stuff, I'm delivering a consistent result that is going to outperform just the worst option. And then I can start to steal budget from the worst option. And as I do that, it starts to swallow up the 3, 4, 5 things. I start at the ad set level on the lower quality campaigns and just start to swallow up that money into testing. At the higher confidence levels, what I'll do is I'll start at the ad level and just like, hey, you've got 10 ads in here. Which one didn't get any spend at all? Let me start to remove the things that got no spend. Let me just take the players off the board that you're not even using anymore. That way they're not incidentally spending 10 bucks here and $30 there. It's a small change, but 10, 20, 30 bucks a day across 7 days, across 5 or 6 different things over the course of a month can be thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars is tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of impressions. How many of those are you spending in a way that is a liability to your overall page score, that is making Facebook less stable and less accurate and less reliable? And when we remove those are the times that we start to really get to the place where we can realistically begin to simplify the ad account more and more and more. Now, the other side of it, what if it's your account? And believe me, I'm guilty of this just as much as anybody else. You make the right move. You make the right move. You make the right move. You got things going on. And then you say, okay, I know I'm going to increase my level of complexity, but it's a good move because this outcome, like I've proven that it's incremental. And I know that this is actually a good thing for me to introduce retargeting, or I'm going to do a cost cap off a control campaign, something along these lines. Like they're all the right move. And I go from say $2,000 to $3,500 and it works. The problem is for me to get the $3,500 to $5,000, I can't continue to make things more complex. So what I have to do is I have to say, and I did, you know, on Wednesdays, I have a client that I talk to, and we've been working together for a long, long, long time. And we were looking at the ad account like, man, we've got twice as many things as we need. So over the course of making all of these right moves that complicate the ad account, what's also happening, if you're doing it right, is that where you are more complex is making even the simpler things, your control environments, more stable and more desirable outcomes. So like your control campaign that maybe was driving sales for $50 before is now driving it for 45 because you're doing all of these other good things. And because, you know, the scatter plot of conversions, high cost and low cost, and Facebook's going to try to drag you right in the middle. If you're eliminating more and more of these high cost ones and using cost cap or, you know, different creative testing or different models that are getting you more and more things below the line, so you're pulling your average cost down. As you pull your average cost down, all of your costs continue to drop on average, because Facebook knows what a good impression is and what a bad impression is, because you're getting better estimated action rate, a better page score, and you're better partnership with the system. At some point when you hit a law of diminishing returns, what we have to do is say, where in these spots we got more complex because it was the right thing to do we now have to honestly look at as a liability to our ability to grow? And the honest truth is, most ad accounts that I work with ebb and flow in this way, where we might get it down to 2 campaigns, and then it grows to like 3, 4, 5 campaigns, and then we have to shrink it back down to 2 or 3 campaigns. And it will ebb and flow, because sometimes in order for you to get across, you know, the break to the next level, to make certain things, to get over that plateau, you have to do something that isn't necessarily best practice, but is the right move for you to make. The problem is we have to have the self-awareness and the control to also take a look at that and say, at what point is this no longer what point is this no longer good for us? At what point are we doing? We went from a C minus to a B plus. Great. How do we get to an A? We can't double down on the thing, because eventually what happens is you start to recreate the problem that you tried to solve in the first place. You start to pick and choose because you're smarter at this now, and because you have better ads, and because you're more stable and you're a better business partner, you can start to abuse that relationship a little bit more. You take more and more things for granted. You take more and more leverage and more liberty with things. So when we want to try to get to that next level, we have to take a look at our own ad accounts and see, where do we need to take a look at our own stuff and see where all of our right decisions were actually what's preventing us from getting to the place where we need to be. And I'll be honest, that is difficult sometimes to appreciate, and to be able to have the self-control to take a look at. But without this skill set, without the discipline of being able to take a look at your own work and see, where's what I'm doing, where everything is the right move, is it a problem? And the way that I try to look at this more than anything is, these are all the right moves. These are all A pluses, B pluses, A minuses, all of that stuff. But they're all that highly graded in comparison to where I was. So to use like a school reference, because we're going around this grading curve, when you were in normal classes, you were an all-star student. Now we're in AP. We're in advanced placement. We're in gifted and talented. That's not going to fly anymore. The grading curve is different. You're at the next level. And at that next level, all of those moves are now, they're great, but they're now C pluses and B minuses. Because you're no longer having the system, you're no longer having the problem of, how do I get past $2,000 a day? You have the problem of, how do I get past 5 because I'm stuck at 3.5. And almost always, when you get stuck around that level, what you'll see is, my ad account looks a lot like it did back when I was at $800. I'm doing everything right. I made all the right decisions. I got all the stuff going on. I'm way more informed, and I'm doing really, really good. But because I made things more complex to solve problems, and because I did all the things that made sense, I'm now a little bit more complex, and I have to legitimately take a look back and do an audit. And one of the things that I do for this is I will legitimately go in. I have like an audit doc that I have that is sort of a rubric. It's a template thing that I do to audit accounts, right? And Eric, I think I was showing you this, and Calvin will be talking about this later too. So this audit, when I'm doing that, I will do it to myself. And I'm not allowed in that situation to explain things. I have to take a look very much, and I have to prove everything out with money and with data. And almost always, I'm going to have a couple things in the back of my head where I was like, yeah, I know this isn't the right thing, but it was really good for giving me this spot. And maybe it's what got you there, but it's also what's going to be holding you back from getting to where you need to go. So when we're looking at how to simplify our ad account, what we need to do is constantly have this cycle where we might get more complicated again, because it's the right thing to do. But we have to take a look at these factors of like spend in the learning phase, and where are our investments competing with ourselves in a way where it might be incremental, is it incremental in value anymore? And ultimately we have to understand, for us to get to the next level in our business, what is the thing that we can do best? And if we know the thing that we can do best, how do we make sure that we're spending as much of our investment there as possible? Because often the solution, like I said, to get you from 800 to 2,000 is not going to be what gets you to 35. It's not going to be the thing that gets you to 5. It's not going to be the thing that gets you to 20 grand. Every time your business evolves, your solution set has to evolve. And you have to have the self-control to go back and reset. And the way that we do that reset, again, we analyze those things. And instead of making very quick moves and just cutting off 10,000 things and doing something else, which, look, you can do that. You can do that. It'll be highly disruptive, and you might break something here or there. But if you're willing to invest in that time and energy, you can do it. But the other side of stuff is, if you take slow moves of stealing market share of liabilities and starting to invest it into solutions, you're going to move forward. You just have to think of that in the same way when it's your campaign, your ad set, your investments. And generally speaking, I would rather invest in testing to solve evergreen problems so that I can move the business forward than I would in short-term solutions. And what I mean by that more than anything, and I'll end with this, is I would rather work on solving a creative issue at my best product at broad and invest my money there than trying to find the right audience or the right tactic or the right additional product that's going to get me to that same level of spend. And you just constantly have to figure this ebb and flow. And it always looks like you did really well. You got a bit more. Things start to break. You have to break it back down. And every time you do that, hopefully what happens is maybe you go from 500 to 2 grand. You pull back and you're at like 15, but then you get to 35. You pull back, you're at like 25, 3, and you get to 5. You pull back a little bit and you're at 8. You pull back a little bit and you're at like 10. Like, this thing does happen. And the last thing that I'll note at this, because I said it was going to go, but I just want to put some context, is in that time where you are simplifying, it almost always means that you're going to take a small hit. You're going to pull back a little bit on spend. You might see you might pull back a little bit on performance, but that's okay. Because what you're doing is it's opportunity cost for that feature success. And you have to be able to identify those spots, and you'll just get better and better at it over time. There's no way of knowing what all the right moves are before you try. So just that context. Again, last thing, just to recap, learning phase, duplicitous efforts that are not incremental. And where do you have unsustainable wins that were the right idea when you started, that are now a liability to your efforts to solve evergreen problems? Almost always solve for the biggest problem you can and stop trying to solve the small stuff, because honestly, it'll just disappear when you solve the big problem. And I think I said that's the last thing I said 3 times. So I'll end with that. And we can take some Q&A here. If you have it, you can drop it in the chat, or we can just go, round robin here as we normally would. Some people unmiked. So I guess we can go in any order you guys want.
Yeah, Charlie, you pretty much answered my first question with your wrap up there, which was, if you were to summarize what were the most common weaknesses or liabilities you see in accounts, I think you pretty much answered that. But on the flip side, when you look at a new account, what are some of the common strengths that you might see or look for in an account?
I think the biggest strengths that I look for when I'm like, this is something I can rely on, consistency of performance. If I'm getting 8 sales a day, if I'm getting, saying in a campaign, I'm just throwing stuff out. Say I'm seeing a campaign that's getting me 15 to 20 sales every day. I can project the outcome. That outcome is fairly stable. And I know that my path to problem solving can make it better. For instance, maybe it's doing that, but they're not using post IDs. They're like duplicating create ads. And I'm like, oh, all I have to do is replace some of these ads with better options, and I'm going to immediately lift things up. Or, oh, it's doing really well, but they've got 7 different audiences. All I need to do there is remove like 1 or 2 of them, and I can make things better. Or, oh, they're not using exclusions properly or something. Like, if there's an easy win to the highest performing effort, that's where I'll generally rally to. But what I'm looking for more than anything is consistency and performance in data. I want to be able to project the outcome, and I want that outcome to be as good or close to what my target is. Those are the places that I'm most likely to consider to be the pillars of where I'm going to build off of when I am working on solving these bigger problems.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Charlie, I have a question. So, lately I've been on this whole, I've been obsessed with estimated action rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been asking you questions and different things about that. One thing, I'm glad I tuned into this, because one thing I did not think about that you talked about today was learning phase. And the more that I've been thinking about Facebook, everything is connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you have a lot of ad sets in learning phase, or even worse, limited learning phase, that tells the machine learning that, hey, something's not really working out properly here. There's a mistake. And I think that having those ad sets in learning phase and limited learning phase could actually be a liability to the quality of traffic that Facebook feeds you.
Yep. Because here's the other side of that. If it's in learning, what is it trying to do? It's trying to take risks to find wins.
And that lowers your estimated action rate, and it all adds up in the end. Yeah.
So that's why you're getting lower quality traffic. And what do? You're like, great, I need new ads. I need new solutions. I need new things. So then you compound the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
Exactly.
Oh man, this thing stopped working. It's super unstable. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And yeah, that's what happens.
Okay, so the question is, you have a sorry about that. My girlfriend called me, but let's say you have some ad sets in a control. Okay, you have a great white shark inside your control that takes majority of the ad spend, but then you have a few other ad sets in there that are in learning phase, because these ad sets still perform decently well. They're still profitable and whatnot. Would you shut those off, even if they're profitable but in limited learning?
Yeah, I would look to them as, not saying I would just do it as a whole hog move.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at where are my liabilities and my assets,
mm-hmm.
when I'm running an audit on my account, for instance, those are going to be the things that I'm like, these are preventing me from being successful. Now, the other side of it is there might be something that's worse. And if you got rid of that worst thing, remember we said about reallocating those investments and those resources. Maybe the reason it's in learning limited is because there's 3 other things that are stealing a little bit of market share, and your estimated action rate is hurt really by them. So it's never like, don't just chop off the worst 20% of things and move forward.
For sure.
Move slowly. Like, let me get rid of the worst thing. If you reallocated $100 from the worst thing to the other thing that was in learning limited, and that got it out of learning limited because it saw enough conversions, and because you got rid of this lowest quality integrity player, your estimated action rate, your page, in your gamma score. I have to program myself to learn this knowledge like there's new lingo. Your gamma score and your estimated action rate starts to go up.
Yeah.
Everything improves across the way.
100%.
Because the other side is too, if you start to cut off everything, you reallocate all that money, you're making big sweeping changes even to your control elements.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true what you said too. And then, raising the budgets, because beforehand, I was lucky before to like get maybe like 20 purchases off of a campaign, and then made those big changes. And then I'm getting like 60 purchases off of a single ad set, daily.
Yeah. I mean, in our DMs, you definitely were saying it right, and I won't get too much into that stuff, but the idea of feeding the machine more data helps it solve the problem. I can't tell you how many people say, how many times I deal with a thing where they're like, well, this isn't working, so we pull back on spend. And this isn't working, we pull back on spend. And this isn't working, so we pull back on spend. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who's going to join the MBA program. I got a call with them in a half an hour to finish up billing because his wife was like a 4-week-old, and he was like, I got to tell her I'm spending this money, but I don't want to wake her up. And I was like, all right, dude, like, let's talk tomorrow after. This guy from the UK with a hair care brand, and he was spending $1,200. Had some difficulty, went to $700. Had some difficulty, went to $500. Had some difficulty, went to $250, and now nothing works. And the reason it doesn't work is because he starved the machine of any ability to see success. He got rid of everything that didn't work and pulled back on the stuff that did work because he couldn't afford it. And basically, exactly what we're talking about. He hurt his estimated action rate more and more. He saw less and less data. He threw more and more ads into places with less and less spend. He increased his instability, and as a result, he lost 80% of his spend, and his performance got worse and worse and worse, even with that lower investment. And to loosely suggest something that maybe somebody on this call has done, go to 2000 instead, because like that's what it needed.
Yeah, well, he'll learn that when he works with you.
I told him that, and he was very excited.
Yeah, use it as a case study, Charlie. I told you that you could use it as a case study.
I appreciate that stuff, man. I appreciate that. That's some of the wins that we have.
But that's it for me, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
This you both kind of bring up a question, which is, what is the ideal budget allocation between, well, I would say between testing and control, but maybe you have other things or different stages of the business that you would consider you need to allocate budget between?
I would consider 100% allocation in testing until you get a consistent result. Once you have a consistent, stable result, I generally shift to way more like what was your testing is now your control. And at that point, I tend to, in a fully mature campaign, I will allocate 10 to 20% of my investment to testing. But the most important thing is if your testing can't leave the learning phase, that it's not going to give you a consistent, reliable result to begin with, then it doesn't matter. So the ideal budget is spend as much as possible where you're confident, while also spending as much as you need to make sure that your testing delivers significant results. And
Charlie, one other thing, Kelvin, is that don't rush it. That's one mistake that me and a friend made before, is that you get so excited about having your control campaign that you want to move everything and separate it, but don't rush the process at all. Just let it mature first.
Nice. Thank you, both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey guys, I think we're good on the Q&A here, it seems. I got a call in about half an hour, and I'm going to go try to make a run to get some dogs some treats here. So I'm going to let you guys go. I'll see you later. I'll post this inside the Slack as soon as possible. And yeah, Daniel and Kelvin, like, you can absolutely come back to other classes, attend them. If you have questions on the topic, please do. And I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves in the new class. And I'd love it for you guys to get to know some of them. And we'll just keep this thing going. And Eric, we're gonna get you an account one of these damn days. We're gonna get you in sooner than later, man. I keep doing whatever I can to make it work for you, dude. Like, I will say this about Eric, even though he's not here. Okay, he is here. So I didn't know if he was here. I was gonna talk a whole bunch of shit, but he showed back up. You work hard, man. You're stubborn enough to get this. It's just a matter of when is the opportunity going to land in your lap, man. And I do appreciate that it's been months and you're still struggling, and you're not struggling. You're still like pushing to make it happen, because as these two guys will tell you, as soon as you do, I feel like you're going to be in a great place. But that's me as a salesperson. I'll let them tell you that instead.
Go for it, man.
All right, I gotta go. I'll see you guys later.
Catch you
All right,
later.
Charlie.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna DM you, bro. I got some
Do
other
it.
stuff.
Oh yeah, Daniel, I'm sorry I missed that thing. Next week, I can do the Slack chat on that topic, because I think everybody's gonna want to know what we're talking about. And the actual
Okay.
solution is a Facebook group custom thing. Like, you're on the right track. There's a liability to what you're doing. We'll talk about it more, but we'll cover that in next week's Slack chat as
For
well.
sure. I got some other stuff too that you might like. But anyways, chat later, Charlie.
All
We
right.
want to know, Daniel. We want to know.
All right.